If you could ask any question in the world, anything, you don't have to answer it. They can answer it. Now's the time. So just raise your hand and let me know what. Well, the students first. Students first. Max.
Will all the same teachers be back again next year?
They don't know that yet. Next question. Yes.
After all you've taught us, what is your advice to us next?
Okay, so what's the next step for these young people?
Do.
Ooh, that's great. That's good. Okay, next question. Move forward, yes.
I hope you've heard the statistic that it takes about 10,000 hours to master something. So could you give us just a general idea of how many hours you put into your craft?
Okay, so he asked, it takes about 10,000 hours to reach mastery level skills. He's asking how many hours have they put into their particular disciplines. Kim, what do you think?
I can't do the math that fast, but it's been 15 years.
So 15 years, and you do?
Non-stop. Except for I set aside family time, and then I'm pretty much a workaholic.
Kathy, what do you think? And now, time out. This is essential. Kim, what's your background? Study-wise?
God.
Okay, so that's been your main study.
In college, I had a book called How to Photograph Your Baby. I photographed my baby this year. And just practice, practice. But my vocation background, I worked in retail. And it definitely came back into play. I did a lot of styling, and I do style shoes. That's my job.
Awesome. So you guys can pass the microphone down to one another. No, but I'm just going to ask questions first. So this is I think one of the most important things you're going to learn this week. One of them. So Kim, first thing she said was God. You're in the Word a lot.
He gifted me. It wasn't something that I was able to do a small study. He just said, "This is your gift from me," and then I had to develop it and work on the technical side a lot. But
So Kathy Buchanan, Kathy's one of our main writers for Lamplighter Theater, and Kathy, of course, you have a master's degree in writing, correct?
I have a master's degree, no. In fact, I didn't even know I was going to be a writer. But I do have a master's degree in counseling, which has helped immeasurably in my writing. And as you talk about how much time I've spent writing, I think, well, I could add that up, but so much of writing is the preparation for the writing and the inspiration for the writing. And so it's in the counseling, it's in the books that I'm reading, it's in, just exercises that I do, or my journaling, which is, all of that contributes. It's my passion, it's my heart, so everything comes back to that, it seems like.
Accumulated effective knowledge and experience is so important. So, what does it take to develop where you are today?
Well, I'm the fourth born of 11 siblings, so I'm part of a big family. So that was a big part in kind of creating who I am. In a big family, kind of have to have a sense of humor. And so how I got to where I am today, God directed me to start making short films with my siblings, which really helped me get to put in those hours needed. And I'm not a master yet. Still have a long ways to go. But making short film after short film, I made, I think, over 70 short films, or close to, with my siblings. And that has really helped hone my skills. And I just want to say, in all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. All your ways. Always seek Him first, and that's the #1 importance.
I think I put in my 10,000 hours on the last Lamplighter Theater, actually. That's kind of a typical thing. But no, something comes to mind is to follow the joy. When you're doing something that God wants you to do, He's wired you to do, He has created you to do, when you follow His dream, not your own dream, His dream in you, there's a joy that you find that will carry you when you're 4:30 in the morning play the harmonica and you feel the joy, you know you're in the right place. Follow the joy.
Well, you asked about the number of hours, and I could actually figure that out. So it's between 50 and 90 hours for the past 20 years a week. So that's between over 50,000 hours on that one. But at the same time, as was spoken about a couple nights ago, the difference between excellence and success is completely different. I know other chefs who have put in that many hours. I know chefs who have put in 2, 3, 4 times more hours than that. And they've become quite successful, some of them, but not all of them have achieved excellence. Just because you're doing something over and over, no matter what industry it is, it doesn't mean that that's going to provide you excellence. You actually need to strive for that. It's a goal that you look for. You have never learned all of everything. In this industry, in any of our industries, you can never know everything. And the same about God. You can never know everything about God. You should always strive to know more, to grow closer.
Well, I was a physics major, so I can't do basic math. But I can tell you it's been about 32 years, and in that process, sometimes I've been following God's will, and sometimes I've been doing what I thought was the right thing to do, and God would kind of come along. Usually He taught me, sometimes easier, sometimes harder, that, oh no, I don't want you to go that way. And ultimately, one thing about the creative arts like this, especially as a believer, is you spend a lot of time on your knees. And you're saying, and the question you should be asking, this is the question that I try to ask as often as possible, is, Lord, you know my heart, you know what I love. I want to do what pleases you. I want to do what, when I'm doing it, like John was saying, I don't care if I'm working 16 hours, 20 hours, whatever, but that I'm feeling the pleasure of the Lord when I'm doing it. And that, for me, for the last 32 years, has been the case. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's very hard work. But as you continue to do it, you know you're in God's will when what? When it's easy? When it's always fun? No. But when you both sense His pleasure, and you also, in the work that you do, you see the fruit of what you're doing. And even this week, it's amazing to me, just the fruit that I already see, the seeds that we've been able to plant, that God has given us the greatest honor and blessing to be able to share with you, and vice versa as well. So I thank all of you for that.
The first part of the question, the 10,000 hours, it's in. That happened a few years ago. I don't let that make myself think that I'm a master, especially in our field. I mean, that's like the tip of the iceberg. So what I would like to encourage specifically my students for is, I saw a beautiful spark in each of you, so don't stop, because you're going to hit a wall, and that's going to be hard. But just don't stop, and if ever you get to that place and you're just like, I don't even know why I need to keep going or what I should do, get in touch with me, and I'd love to just be that person that can encourage you. And the other thing I just would really love to leave with you is, allow yourself to let God use the weakness and to create through your weakness. Because when we're vulnerable and we share out of that, your work will begin to impact people and you'll connect with them on another level. And some of the most beautiful work has come from those vulnerable places. So, you know, we think of Norman Rockwell and all these happy family, amazing paintings. His wife ended up being in an insane asylum, so his life was not this beautiful picture that he blessed all of us with. And that's true for so much great art. So just want to encourage you guys, and thank you for just sharing your spark with me. It was beautiful.
And then Norman Rockwell, most of his paintings were destroyed in a fire, and he had to overcome that amazing obstacle as well. Thomas Steed majored in psychology, not dramatic arts. And so it's important that you have a wide range of experiences and knowledge. My particular background, I majored in economics when I went to St. John Fisher University. And then I did that for the first year, and then I majored in accounting in the second year, and then I majored in management science the third year. In the fourth year, I majored in sociology. In the fifth year, I majored in speech, and then in the sixth, I went to school for a long time. In the sixth year, I came to know Jesus as my Savior, and I switched my major to special education. And after college, then I went on to Pensacola Christian College and majored in administration. And then after that, I went on to Baptist Bible Seminary and majored in Old Testament Hebrew, and then after that went on for a Master of Theology degree and majored in Greek and Biblical Theology. And then after that, I went on to Denver Seminary and majored in Executive Leadership. And I'm just finishing that degree this year. When I'm done with that, I'm going to go on for another doctorate, not because I need degrees, but because it forces me to learn. And unless you are a lifelong learner, you're going to go backwards. I'm not looking for degrees, but I know that I do not have the self-discipline that's necessary for me to be continuously learning like that. And so I have to be pushed a little bit. And so it's worth it. And all of those majors that I've had in my background, you know what's amazing? They all are useful. They fit in some way. You know, I'm just amazed by it. And so if God can use me, he can use anybody. Okay, a question for a specific teacher as we're getting close to the end here. Any question for a specific teacher? Oh, someone who hasn't asked a question yet. Anybody? Here's your chance. You can ask anything. Ask something about their personal lives. Yes.
Joe, what do you look for in an intern?
Someone like you, Ian.
Can we bring them home?
Can you bring them home? Well, let's see. If the chef comes with us, yeah. Yes.
Joel, what's your favorite short film that you made?
Short film.
Probably same here or the one we made here.
Wow. Wow. The one you made here, the one jumping off the cliff. Wow, that was really cool. Yeah, I didn't know what they were going to do. He said, Mark, do you want me to show you ahead of time? I said, no, I trust you. I said, should I trust you? You know. Yes.
I've been hearing a lot of the students talk, and it's funny how, especially among the girls, like there's this sense of, okay, we're going to become masters, but then we do want to have a family. So I was wondering if you ladies could address like how you balance still, you know, participating in your craft, but yet raising a godly family.
That's a great question.
Learning to say no is very important. If you're having a hard time saying no, hone in on your specialty, and then only a small pocket of people will fit into that specialty, and so it naturally eliminates other work that you don't really want to do anyway. So learning to say no, setting aside time for your family, like our weekends. I don't do shoots on weekends unless it's a wedding, and then I limit the number of weddings that I do on top of that. So establishing a routine and setting aside that time and then sticking with it. And people respect that too. So don't tell yourself, I have to work because that's the only time they're free. They take off work, they come to me, they take their kids out of school. So, you know, just prioritize your time and stick with it.
I've learned that you can't do it all, but you can do a lot. And so it's just prioritizing what you need to do in that moment and or in that week. And for me, I have my set hours that are sacred. And honestly, I get as much done in 15 hours now as a freelancer than I did in 40 hours, 40, 50, whatever hours, crazy hours we worked when I was on staff. Maybe because meetings and John's not around to pull pranks on. But it really is more about and incorporating, like writing. My kids know that I write, and they know that this is my passion and my heart, and they become a part of that, and they ask me questions, and they write their own stories. My daughter, my 9-year-old, gets up at 5 in the morning on Saturdays, because that's mommy's writing time, and we go to Starbucks, and we sit by the window, and she reads and does her writing, you know, with her little hot chocolate, and I have mine, and she is up at 4, like she really gets up at 4:30, and she's waiting for me when I get up to go, and we write until 11, and it's just our lifestyle.
Before I give it to Lisa, did you hear that? On Saturday morning, she's at Starbucks at 5 a.m.
I think priority is crucial for us as women to balance that out. And when God's not coming first, and I'm going to be honest, it's a daily battle for me because I like my work, and that could be my idol and my security. So daily, I have to lay it down and give it to God and say, God, this is for you, because if I do it in the wrong time, it literally tastes like ashes in my mouth, and I don't know how else to describe that. So pursue your work in the right order, and then it will be joyful to you, and God will bless it. And then the other thought is, I always have a plan before I go to my studio, so I don't sit down and get to my studio and think, okay, now what do I do? I have the next 20 to 40 paintings planned. So when I get that moment, I get right to work. It's not like, oh, you know, and when I was a student, I think that was the difference. I had all this time to go, oh, well, what am I gonna do? And now it's just, it's very clear. And sometimes I'll change that plan, but figure all that out in advance, have a plan.
It's very essential for you young ladies. First of all, God wants you to have a family, so that's important. That's priority over your career. But one of the things that happens is that you start a family maybe too soon. And so right now's the time, while you're teens, young 20s, pursue all of the knowledge that you can, all of the skills that you can. Now's the time. And you young men, same thing. You know, the scripture talks about in Deuteronomy that the very first year of marriage, you're not even supposed to go out, go have a job. You know, have everything, or not have a job, but don't go to work, don't go to war, don't get involved in politics. You know, so have a year that you can cheer up your wife, it says. You know, so that those things are really important. Now's the time to, in Proverbs it says, first plow your fields and then build your house. And so many people today want to build their house before they've plowed their fields. So for both young men and young women, it is essential right now that you put in the exhaustive hours that you need to be able to be prepared for that day that you start your family. So that when you start your family, you can have your own businesses in your own house. You know, you want people to come to you. Show me a man diligent in his work, and he'll stand before kings and not before mean, which is the word for obscure men, which means that when you reach high levels of excellence, other people will not use you for their advantage at your disadvantage. It means that they call the shots. When you reach high levels of skills, you call the shots. Like, I like what you said. They'll take off work, they come to school, they come to you. They want what you have. Okay? Okay, and yes.
This is a question for the men, and I want to ask you, what would you say in your professional life and in your life, what kind of advice would you give the young men here on how to be a godly man in your profession?
Okay, well, we got 2 minutes is all we've got, so I'm going to choose Kathy, would you ask me?
I'd say very similar to what we were just speaking with the woman about. It's as we men have just as much a commitment to the family. God calls us to the family. Yes, like I just spoke about, I have spent the past 20 years 50 to 90 hours a week, and yes, that has been a definite challenge to the family. But the time that you have, make sure you put your right priorities in the right place. Don't just go home, sit on the computer or in front of the TV, whatever. Have your focuses right. Have your priorities straight.
Make the real priorities your priority. Make the main thing the main thing. First thing you should be looking to the Lord and asking Him what you should be doing. And then a lot of the other things that break down, they're not real hard to figure out. Family, your wife, as a husband, as a father.
And don't forget that there are times and seasons. Now look at Luke chapter 8. You know, Joanna, one of the women that was married to Herod's steward, was following Jesus throughout the wilderness, ministering unto him at her own expense. You know, so there are times and seasons where God calls some of us to a little bit higher calling, where not sacrifice the family, but it may be time where you can't give all to your family that you need to. John Adams, for example, had to go away for 2 years to France to be able to negotiate, you know, that helped us overcome during the American Revolution. So had he not done that and left his 8 children and wife behind, we might not be here today. So there's some people that God calls to sacrifice, and those things at times are necessary. One more question. One dad had a question in the background.
Yeah, as a father who intentionally had my child come for him to be poured into, as a master, looking back as you were growing up, what would you have done differently in order to become the person that you are today, to pour into their lives? What would you have done? What would you have invested into yourself differently than you did, knowing what you know now?
So if you could do it all over again, is there anything that you would have done differently than you've done? Anything? Just tell me.
I would have explored internships or shadowing. Because I was raised by a mom who's a stay-at-home mom. I had
no aspirations to have a career. I didn't plan to go to college. I did for 1 year, but let's say I didn't have a lot of exposure to how many different crafts and occupations there were in the world, and so I wish I had had that opportunity.
Internships, I believe, are the key to education. It worked. That's what I think ushered in the Renaissance period. Michelangelo, Da Vinci, those guys, they were interns. They had apprentices. Michelangelo was apprenticed at 6 years of age. You want to do you want to know what he did between age of 6 and the age of 12? It's a rhetorical question, I'll tell you. What he did is he peeled potatoes, he prepared the food, swept the floors, made the beds for his master that he worked with until he was 12. He was not even allowed to hold a paintbrush or a knife to sculpt. He just got to watch. Okay? Anything else that you've done? Kathy, anything differently? No, you've got a perfect life. Joel, anything? No, really, I think.
Take a week to track your time and just see really where you're wasting your time. I think I was amazed, like looking back and seeing how much time was on email or TV, even though I think I don't watch much TV, like to go back. And you just think of like the hours that you wasted, you know, just in, I don't know, phone conversations or things. I mean, just really being aware of the limit, the amount of time that you have. I mean, especially at this stage, honestly, where you do have that freedom to like, I mean, you could do anything. You can travel, you can read all these books that Mark was talking about. I mean, and just use that time wisely. I mean, that's your commodity right now.
To dovetail on that, we've become such a culture of busyness. And I'm not disagreeing with her, I'm agreeing with her. It's so easy to fill up our time with a lot of stuff that doesn't really get to the meat of aspiring for excellence. Even when we're trying to honor God, we get so busy sometimes with so many things. With my own kids, I've actually said to them, you know what, guys? I love for you to do this. I love for you to learn these things. Pick a few. Let's do a few this semester. Let's do a few this year. Have time to play, to pray, to wonder. Not become so busy that you're constantly. A week like this is fantastic, and we're here for a reason, and it is pretty wall to wall. I mean, everybody's pretty tired, and that's great. But I think in the day-to-day life, sometimes you look at 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, several months, and like Kathy's saying, sit down, you write down, well, what exactly am I doing? What am I spending my month, my week doing? And you'll find that a lot of that time is getting spent doing stuff that maybe isn't. Some of it can probably get trimmed out to make room for the really good stuff.
You know, if you're spending a lot of time on Facebook and TV, videos, video games, you're not going to be able to go forward. You got to get rid of this stuff. It's as simple as that. Watch the film Captivated by Philip Telford. It'll help you a lot. We brought some of the books here that were up above here, just a few left over. If you were ones that were like, I don't know if I really want to get them, there's a few left. Make sure you read these books. They're here for a reason. They have helped us over the last several years. And I'm not doing this to be boastful whatsoever, because I'm a very slow reader. But I've read over 60,000 pages to help me and to understand what does it take to move organizations forward? What does it take to be creative in an organization? I couldn't do the Guild here if I had not been reading all of these things. And so it helps you. It allows you to become more creative in who you are. Anything else? Okay. Guys, you've been the greatest.